What's going on, guys? I've got 5 different things that I do when I'm out looking for morels. And I thought I would share that with you today. Plus, I also have a 6th thing that I'll share with you that I honestly think is key in extending that morel season. So if you're interested, let's do this. Okay, so we often hear, tree identification being a very key thing, and obviously it is when you're morel hunting. But I want to kind of take it a step further. Not only is it tree identification like elm trees, ash trees, sycamores, cottonwoods, aspens, apple trees, ash trees. I mean, there's just a ton of trees that are associated with morels, but one of the things I really want to focus on is what tree associates with what type of morel. So think about that for a minute. At the very beginning of the season, it's black morels. That's the thing that pops out first, black morels. Well, I can't tell you the number of hours that I had spent in the past when I first started mushroom hunting, looking for morels at the very beginning of the season under tulip poplars. Well, tulip poplars don't yield black morels, and I didn't know that. I just heard that morels associate with these trees and went out and look for morels. But I wasted a ton of time doing that because in my area, black morels actually resonate with the ash tree. So I guess what I'm saying is, in your neck of the woods, be it a cottonwood or a buckeye or a sycamore tree or an elm tree or whatever, find out what mushroom in your area is associating with that. Now, typically, there are some kind of typical rules, like tulip poplars are, I have only heard of tulip poplars yielding the yellow morel. Ash trees, I've found both under that, but they primarily, typically, let me put it that way, it's a black morel. Cottonwoods, I've heard of that being a yellow. We don't have a lot of cottonwoods down here. That's more of a southern tree, so I don't really focus on those. Aspens, I've heard black morels, and aspens are actually, further north. We've got a few here, but not a lot. That is more of a northern type of tree. The buckeye tree, obviously that's out in Ohio. That's a yellow morel. So get to know what trees in your neck of the woods are actually producing the different types of morels. It'll save you some time, especially at the beginning of the season, because those black morels are the first ones to come out. Okay, number 2 is really hunting slopes. And let me explain. I'm talking about the southern exposure, especially when morel season first starts, because that actually is going to get the most sun. And it's going to create that ground temperature to rise a lot more rapidly than the other locations in the northern exposure and stuff like that. So you definitely want to pay attention to that, but also don't neglect later on in the season the northern exposures. I mean, you're going to want to go look at these areas because those ground temperatures are obviously, warming up later on during the morel season. So it's just another way to kind of extend that season. And that kind of leads me to ground temperature. This is key. And I've talked about this in other videos. The ground temperature needs to be 45 to 50 degrees. I think everybody knows that. The outside air is somewhere between 40 and 60, 40 at night, 60 in the day. And these are just rough estimates, but the ground temperature definitely is a 45 to 50 degree. Once that happens, you get out there, you start looking for those morels. And I mentioned my asparagus bed. That's one way that I personally know when those ground temperatures are right where they need to be. So pay attention to the ground temperatures. Okay, so number 4 is disturbed ground. Ground that has been churned up in one way or another. And it could be something as simplistic as a game trail. Now, I've mentioned this in some of my other videos, actually not too long ago, where we were finding some black morels right off of that game trail. Just someplace that the earth or the dirt has been disturbed. Morels really seem to like that. Also logging roads. That's a fantastic place to look. Forest fires. There's some disturbed ground right there. Morels just associate with that for whatever reason. So if you've got that, plus the trees, plus the right ground temperature, then you're probably going to find morels. And number 5 is really the rain. Rain is key. You've got to have the rain to support it. I mean, you could have the right ground temps, you can have the right trees, you can have disturbed earth, you can have all of the key ingredients and not have morels if you don't have the rain. So rain is key on this. But here's the thing about the rain. Let's say it's been dry for a little bit. You're coming into morel season and all of a sudden you get a good solid day of rain. Well, don't go out the next day. Give it some time. Let these guys fruit and pop out, because it takes a little bit for those morel to go to full maturity. I mean, roughly anywhere from 7 to 15 days. So keep that in mind, especially if it's been dry for a while. You just definitely don't want to go right out the day after a rain. I typically wait about 3 days. And it seems to work fairly well. Now I've got a bonus tip for you, and one of the things I actually love to do is chase the morels up elevations. So if you live in an area with, I would say, somewhere between 1,000 feet difference in elevation, which it should be plenty, you can chase the morels up the elevation. So start looking at the lower elevations. In my neck of the woods, I typically start around the 2,000 mark. And then that's when I start seeing them pop out. At that point, I search there for about 2 weeks and then go up another 1,000 feet to around 3,000 and start looking there, and you'll just start to see them emerge then, which is really cool, because you can really extend your morel season just by chasing that elevation. So if you chase the elevation and you keep in mind the slopes, the northern slopes, the south slopes, you do all of that, you can really extend the morel season. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. I really do appreciate you watching. Thank you for that, and please don't forget to subscribe and, you know, slap that like button. I'll talk to you. Ooh, all smelling good.